At Leidos, we make things smarter and more efficient. From helping the VA cut disability exam processing times by half, to already being done with this ad. Leidos, making smart smarter.
Empire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm coming to you from Greenville, South Carolina, where I'm meeting up with a group called Green Gridiron. They make personalized helmets and also work with the NFL and college football to do the real ones. And I'm going to get a tour of their facility, and I'm going to do a video with them about, I don't know, they'll probably talk about the team a little bit, and they're going to show me their stuff, and they're going to make me an Empire Media helmet. It's really cool. I'll show it to you tomorrow on YouTube so you can check it out. And so we're going to do this semi-solo. I'm going to get Callow to come on in a little bit to talk about the Caps and advancing, and I want to start there as well. And then I'm going to get into some NFL stuff with you, but watched Game 5 last night. They finished off Montreal. They move into the second round. At the time that, as of last night, they were the only two teams that actually advanced. So there's going to be some rest here as they kind of wait for the rest of the league to catch up and get through the majority of the series. So there's going to be time for both of these teams to kind of get ready. I think that's good for the Capitals, who, while they are this mix of old and young, I think it's nice to get fresh legs for Ovi, who's totally re-engaged in this playoff run. Tom Wilson, who I wouldn't call old, but older, totally re-engaged in this playoff run. John Carlson got a point last night. That was nice to see. Altogether, I mean, overall, what a run by this team. I do feel like that they got the right opponent coming into the first round, off of the way that they kind of lackadaisically kind of finished out the season post finishing off the record for Ovi, and just kind of made it relatively clear that they didn't really care at all, like how they finished out, because their seeding was locked up. I think they caught the right team. Young team, might be a little bit ahead of the curve, and a team that just not with a lot of playoff experience. Goaltenders that are good, not great. Best players aren't overly experienced like the Capitals players. So they caught the right 8 seed for sure, but they get to advance. First time since 2018, first time since winning the Cup. I can't believe that. It's been that long since they won a playoff series, but we're back into the second round, so that's awesome. It's going to be an incredible series against Carolina, extremely physical series. Either one of those teams could end up obviously representing the East and being the Stanley Cup, so there's no weak opponent here. Heavyweight battle, round 2. It's going to be awesome. Ovi scoring again. He remains really locked in here. Wilson, obviously, on the ice, player of the series, had the defining hit Game 4 that kind of turned things around there up in Montreal to have the third period comeback for them to win. And then Logan Thompson, I mean, man, I think Sean McDonough kind of said it, or it was Ray Ferraro, one of them. I was watching the ESPN broadcast last night because I was out of town. And they were like, he was good in Vegas. He's been great here. And they just said, sometimes it just fits for you in some places, and it really just fits for him. And obviously Washington has seen that, feels that, gave him the extension already going into the playoffs. And then he gets hurt in the middle of the playoffs. It looked like, when was he going to play again? Turns back around, plays through it. And twice, I don't think he won the game for the team last night. They could have scored 7 goals. The goaltending for Montreal stopped a lot of early goals, or that thing could have gotten way, way, way out of hand. But he made all the saves he needed to make, a couple of them early and a few of them late in desperation time against Montreal. He was outstanding. He won them and stole them Game 2. And if this is the kind of goaltending that they're going to get, where they can rely on him to save games, steal games, be a brick wall for them, then there's kind of no telling how far they can go. So I'll get Callow on in a little bit. We'll talk more about it, but that was just awesome last night. So let's go Caps. Pumped, as you all know here. I know you all want me to talk football. I love talking football. When I just think of myself now just as a fan, obviously everything's like Commanders first, NFL first, but I love hockey and I love the Caps. And so I'm just psyched for them, and I'm pumped about what's going on with them. So I'll get Callow on. We'll get his thoughts. He produced, obviously, the game last night. All right, let's go through some grades. So I was going through, all the teams, and let's do the NFC first. Yesterday we went through the NFC East a little bit and kind of tangentially talked about how everybody did, but let's take stock of everybody. And I was thinking about this, and I was initially why don't I just talk about who I think are the contenders? And I just had to kind of remind myself, The Commanders weren't considered a contender going into the draft last year, even though they came out with Jaden Daniels. They weren't perceived as a contender into the summer. And, I do believe that there is room for teams to take leaps, up and down. Dallas had a leap down last year. Washington had a leap up. Detroit, had a leap up a couple of years ago. So I'm going to put nothing past anybody. Let's just take stock of where everybody is, and let's just kind of go through this. And let's just do the NFC here first. First team, and I'm going to go alphabetical order with everybody because I'm going through a draft grade page that's from NBC. I'll give you my thoughts. I'll tell you what they said, but I'll go through my thoughts. And obviously, you can find draft grades from just about everybody and everywhere who does all the mock drafts these times and all the draft coverage. Arizona, who started off the season last year hot. We actually played them at the wrong time. We blew them out. And that was like, I go back to when I kind of knew things were going to be different for Washington, really was week 3 to week 4, which was the Cincinnati win on Monday night, was the show me game. Jaden was amazing. It was kind of the first time you saw when they were going to be special. They had a short week turnaround to play Arizona. Arizona was, I think, 2-1 at that point. They had beaten the Rams. They had almost won in Buffalo. They really started the season hot. They might have been 1-2 or 2-1, but they were right there and they had won a big game already. And Washington boat raced that team. And once they did those 2 games back to back, I went, this thing's on. Well, let's see if it has lasting power. This is all new. We don't know what we don't know. But this is when it was on. For me, it was that early that it was on. They went and spent their first 4 picks, and they're all in the traditional rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, on defensive players. Actually, the first 5 defensive players, all of them. Denzel Burke, cornerback, Ohio State, went in this 5th round. They got Walter Nolan, defensive tackle, middle of the first round. He looks like he could be a freakish talent. What you watched about him, because I took a little bit of a look at him coming in just in case he had got to 29, is he has these kind of freakishly talented plays, but there's not the consistency. They'll talk about the motor with him. If he plays to the degree that he can play, he could be a difference-making player. Round 2, they got Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan, at 47. That is an unbelievable value. And the only reason why he went where he went there was because of injuries towards the end of his season. So this could be a boom defensive draft for the Cardinals. They're giving some pieces to their head coach, who has the defensive background, Jonathan Gannon. Do you buy Kyler Murray as a long-term answer? I think it's hard to come around to that. But if their defense gets considerably better, I don't know. Maybe the Cardinals, if Gannon can get them, a little more competitive on that side of the ball. With San Francisco, I think, waning the wrong way. With Seattle in kind of a limbo spot here. They could be, again, a team that's kind of vying to be second place in that division, and that can also mean wild card playoffs for them. They got a B+ for their draft, and I told you about the main ones that they got there. Atlanta also went very heavy defense early. They got Jalen Walker at 15, the Georgia linebacker, and then they got James Pierce Jr., the edge at Tennessee, at 26. I think James Pierce was someone that was somewhat linked here, mainly because Washington screamed edge rush in the draft. Obviously, they didn't do that, but maybe because of some of the people that were already off the board, they didn't go that way. They'd also talked about how things were a lot deeper there. Walker, I think, should be a hit piece for them. And again, Atlanta, with feeling good about Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, they're a good offensive line. They're not at a lack of offensive players. They should be a very good team this year. They need to give Raheem Morris defensive players. They go heavy in that direction. That makes a lot of sense. Their defense was weak a year ago. Give them a couple of toys to play with. Let's see what they do. They got a B- here. I agree. They, like Washington, only 5 picks in the draft. But they went with essentially a lot of defensive players, and I think it was necessary for them this year to try to bulk up on that side of the ball. So I like what they did, and not unlike Arizona. Get it right with the draft. It looks like it's tracking kind of the right way. They're in a division that's very easy to be competitive in, especially if you take into account New Orleans and Carolina, and you go, I'm not sure I see it with them quite yet. Atlanta could be in a 2-team race with Tampa Bay, and that could mean playoffs for them. They were right there at the end of December. They're going to get a full season out of Penix. We'll see what that looks like. As for Carolina, first-round pick is the receiver McMillan out of Arizona. most people had scouted him and said he was the number one receiver coming out, so they get that. Ben Standig's guy, Nick Scourton, the edge from Texas A&M, ends up going 51. So if Washington was truly interested in him, and Ben believed that that was the case, he was gone and off the board before Washington picked in the second round. Obviously, they could have taken him in the first round, but they went in this direction. Round 3, they went with another edge rusher. Remember, Brian Burns went to New York a year ago. They haven't really replaced him. So they go both sides of the ball here. They get Trevor Etienne from Georgia as a running back in the 4th round. Again, this is a pretty good draft class. They possibly got the number one receiver. They can add him to Xavier Legette. It looked like Bryce Young had kind of taken a turn last year. Chuba Hubbard's a good enough, I wouldn't call him great, but very good enough starting running back. Spent a lot of money on the offensive line. Had we played Carolina, not like we played Arizona, what I thought was kind of a wrong time, we beat them anyway. We played Carolina at really the right time when we got Andy Dalton earlier in the year and blew them out. If they had played Carolina late in the season, they nearly beat Philadelphia. They nearly beat Kansas City. They were right there at the end. Young had really kind of turned the corner, so they had gotten better. Do I buy there's going to be a jump? Not yet. I need to see it with Bryce Young, but I buy them as more competitive, and the grade that they got was an A-. So far so good for all the teams we've talked about. As for the Bears went with Colston Loveland. There's been a lot of reporting that a lot of teams tried to trade up to get him before the Bears took him at 10, so that's kind of validation. Don't typically take a tight end that high, but they did. There's validation there that they think he's going to be a game-changing type of tight end. Remember, they got Cole Kmet, who's good, right? So that's a heck of a core at tight end. Then they get it round 2 early in it. They get Luther Burden, who I think is a boom potential slot player. Add him to Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. Now they bring in Loveland. All of a sudden, like they're really ramping up the skill position players. I still think they need to do more on their offensive line to kind of help Caleb Williams. And this is obviously a new system for them. I know they spent some money on the offensive line, but I think there's maybe some more to do here. I don't look at that as Detroit's. That said, they're trying to help out the offense. They have an offensive coach. They're going to try to be dominant on that side of the ball. They took a running back, a guard, a tackle, a receiver, and a tight end amid the 8 picks that they had. So they felt it necessary to try to bulk up on that side of the line. If Loveland is what they say he's going to be an incredible target for Caleb Williams. Luther Burden, he's got the skill set to be really good. He'll probably be a slot receiver, but I want to see it. And there's a reason why he went 39 and not higher than that. They're calling this grade a B+ for the Bears. I'd go a little lower potentially than that. There's a possibility it's a big hit if Burden is really good. Otherwise, I think it's more like a B to a B-. Next team, Dallas. We talked about them a little bit yesterday, so I'll just go quickly through them. Tyler Booker was probably the best interior offensive lineman on the board. They needed help on their offensive line. Zach Martin retired. Obviously, their offensive line had gotten worse a year ago. There were a couple of defections that left. I don't think they replaced them adequately. That had to happen. DeMarcus Lawrence is gone. Dorrance Armstrong is gone. They had to get an edge. They do. They go get Donovan Iziraku out of Boston College. There was a lot of thoughts that he might be a first-round pick. He ends up going 44 overall into the second round. They needed help at corner, opposite of Trayvon Diggs. And, of course, after him getting hurt, they were very weak at that position. They've had some defections back there. They go with Siobhan Revel Jr. out of East Carolina, who's got a lot of hype. Obviously, I don't watch a lot of East Carolina, so it's hard to know exactly what they've got there. They take a running back out of Texas, necessary there as they try to figure out the future at that position. They took a second running back out of Clemson late. The grade that they got was a B+, and I'd say it's right. I mean, not unlike where Washington had to make some choices. I felt like Dallas's choices were purposeful, although it's the right way to put it. They were purposeful in what they did. And in Tyler Booker and Iziraku, they should be frontline starters right off the bat. So that should be good for them. For Detroit, they were given an A- on their draft, and I think you're going to hear a lot of names that you're not really totally sure who they are. So are they going to fit in and become really good players? They didn't hit the star players. Round 1, they picked 28th. They took Tyleik Williams as defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I'll have to ask Kime about him. Then they went guard with Tat Rutledge out of Georgia at 57. Both are ranked as higher than than where they got them. So it looks like, at least from the rankings, that they did well. And then in the third round, they took a receiver out of Arkansas by the name of Isaac Tisla, who had a very low ranking, and it felt like a reach, but then everybody made fun of them for taking Jahmyr Gibbs, so who knows? This isn't they got an A- from NBC. I look at this and I go, I'll believe it when I see it with any of these people. Did they get really good just starters in a defensive tackle and a guard? Well, then they've improved themselves if that's what they've done. So we'll have to see. Green Bay, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers probably look at this going, I was waiting for you guys to get me offensive weapons for years. You never did it. Matthew Golden selected in the final third of the first round, receiver out of Texas. I like him a lot. Should be a really good weapon, day one starter to fit in alongside what is a deep receiving core, but hasn't had a star receiver on that receiving core. Maybe he can turn into that for them. They help out Love as well by getting Anthony Belton, offensive tackle out of NC State. The rankings believe that that's somewhat of a reach for that. They went with another receiver in round 3. So top 3 picks, all offense, trying to help Jordan Love get the offense going, and Matt LaFleur as well. They then went fully defense over their next 4 or 5 picks, but these are all mid-round and down. 2 edges, a defensive tackle, a corner. The grade they got was a C. I think it could be a little bit higher than that if Golden turns out to be a star. Obviously, no guarantee of that, but watching him in college, I think there's a propensity for that to be a possibility with him. The Rams, of course, F them picks. Maybe they're not living that anymore, but did not have a first-round pick again. Terrence Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon, taken in the second round. Josiah Stewart, edge out of Michigan. That might be a steal pick in the third round, ranked 52nd on some boards, taken at the 90th selection. So that might be a steal pick for them. Everyone else will be names that you don't necessarily know. Nothing really stands out about this. C+ is what they were given for it. Still think they need a lot of help. They're very young on defense. I think they need more weapons on offense. Maybe Ferguson does that out of the tight end position. I would go with, I don't see much of an upgrade here for that group now that they've gotten there. Minnesota is coming off an incredible season, 14-3. They add a guard in the first round, Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State at 24. They took our guy Ty Felton out of Maryland in round 3. Obviously, it's a crowded receiver room there, so he's going to be fighting for playing time with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They only had 5 picks as well and only went defense on 2 of them. Their defense was one of the best in the league last year. They're just trying to find places to make their team better. They have a very, very good roster. They got a C- for this group, but if they got a good starting guard there, then I think they've done all right. Felton was very good at Maryland, and obviously I'm rooting for him. Saints go Kelvin Banks Jr. at number 9 instead of quarterback. I know a lot of people thought maybe that was the spot for Shador. Didn't work out that way, obviously. They went with Tyler Shugg at quarterback at round 2. That's where a lot of people thought Shador would end up going. Is he the quarterback of the future? He's going to come in here at 25. He's extremely experienced, been around the block. We saw what Jaden Daniels' experience did for him. This guy obviously is not nearly as athletic, but he's got the NFL arm. And there are a number of the scouts that say he's the most NFL ready right now. Does he have the high-end talent? We'll have to see. But there are a number of scouts that were saying of the group coming in right now, he's the most ready to actually go out there and play. He may have to with Derek Carr's situation. They gave them a C. We don't know if Carr's going to be able to play with his shoulder. They gave them a C on NBC. I think it could be better than that if Shugg is what I think a number of the scouts project him to be, which is at least good, certainly ready, maybe great. We'll have to see. The backup situation in New Orleans is not threatening to be the replacement for Derek Carr, which is why I think Derek Carr is back. Shugg could be the starter if Carr can't go, or maybe it's a year behind him and then he takes over soon. We'll have to see. For the Giants, Abdul Carter, obviously, it's obvious pick. He might be the best player in the draft. It does give them a glut at edge rusher, but that's not a bad problem to have. Jackson Dart, they trade back in to get to what they believe is their quarterback of the future. I don't know how this is a fit. I don't know how he's going to start this year. I don't know if Brian Daboll is going to be his coach next year. It really will depend how they do. They also took Cam Scatabo, the running back out of Arizona State, so that'll be interesting to see how much he plays. They took him in the 4th round. They gave the Giants a B. It's hard to miss on Carter. He was kind of a can't-miss prospect, But outside of that, I'm more inclined to go, we'll just have to see how it goes. I don't think it's going to be like last year's draft where they actually did very, very well. Philadelphia got Jahad Campbell, just makes them better. They took a number of defensive players. Let's see, five defensive players at the top of their draft. They had a number of picks. I heard some people say like they didn't think they had enough room to have them all on their roster. They take a flyer on Kyle McCord, the quarterback who transferred out of Ohio State, went to Syracuse, had a really good year there. He might be one of the most NFL-ready players. Does he have the talent and athleticism to do it? We'll have to see. They don't need to find out. They can just put him in the system and find out. It's not a wasted pick for them. I mean, if he ends up being a quarterback of the future or a valued backup for them, one that can play within their offense with all the skill position players that they have, well, then it's a hit for them. They got a B+. I'll give them an A. Jahad Campbell is just going to make them better. I think the flyer on McCord makes a lot of sense for a team like that. They can just kind of do it and eat it. If it doesn't work out in a couple of years, it'll be like, so what? Who cares? They've done well, and I'm not in the business of trying to question what they're doing because they seem to get it right too often. And in the draft in recent years, they've got it right a lot, over and over and over. Look at their defense, who they don't have to pay for at least a couple more years. The window is just so wide open based on the young talent that is on that side of the ball. So they're going to be something they're going to have to be dealt with. And I know a lot of people are talking about is the gap closed with Washington and Philadelphia. I don't think it's there yet, especially if they're going to keep drafting as well as they have on that side of the ball. We know what they have with Saquon and Jalen Hurts and that offensive line and A.J. Brown. If that defense is going to remain a top 5 defense, it makes them almost impossible to beat, or at least have the best roster in the NFL going in each and every week. San Francisco, let's see. Michael Williams, edge, Georgia. So they go in that direction to go opposite of Nick Bosa. They go defensive tackle. Remember, Javon Hargrave is gone now. There's been a lot of changes on that team. They went defensive players at their first 5 picks, 2 in the 3rd round, 1 in the 4th round, before they got around to taking a receiver and a running back in the 4th and 5th round, and they had a number of other picks as well. I think it is the right thing to do to go on that side of the ball. They're paying Brandon Ayuk. They just paid George Kittle. They're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. Their money is spent on that side of the ball. Christian McCaffrey's paid. Trent Williams is paid. They've got to get younger, and they've got to restock big time, and that's what they did. NBC gave them a grade of a C-. I guess they just don't like the players that they took. I don't know if I'd go that far. I'd say jury's out on them, so I'll give them a B- to a C, and jury's out on them. Seattle goes interior offensive line in 18 with Gray Zabel. Some people believe the guard out of North Dakota State was better than Tyler Booker. They took Nick Imanwori, who's the safety out of South Carolina, at 35. He's the player whose numbers kind of jumped off the charts at the combine. He's kind of tall, lanky. It's the Jeremy Chin look. Very fast, could be very physical. That's an interesting pick for them. They took Jalen Milroe in round 3. Obviously, Sam Darnold is really on a like a 1 or 2 year deal with them. Milroe will go in their system, and we'll find out if he's potentially a quarterback of the future for them. I think that's a good flyer pick for them. They're not asking him to start right now. They paid Darnold. They could just put him out there. They could put him out there in packages where he probably runs a little bit, maybe throws the ball, and then eventually find out over the next year or two, is he your quarterback of the future? My gut says that's not going to happen unless you're going to run a very specific offense that takes advantage of his skill sets. But who knows? He could grow into it and become a very good player. They got a B- on this. I think they've done pretty well here. Imanwori didn't go in the first round, even though his numbers jumped off the page, which must say that the tape didn't look as good as the numbers and the statistics look. I think Zabel's just a plug-in starter, and they need it on the offensive line for sure. And Milroe's a good flyer. So I think Seattle's haul is pretty good here. Tampa Bay, Emeka Egbuka, who obviously was a very good player at Ohio State, makes them better. I don't get taking a receiver if I'm them. Jalen McMillan was 2nd or 3rd round pick a year ago. Total hit. Mike Evans is there. Just re-signed Godwin. Why do you need to do this? So not that I'm not someone who's going to sit there and go, you can't take people like this. He's a really good player. Just take the best player available. If they thought he was the best player available, fine. It does signal that Mike Evans' days are probably very much numbered there, and he's older now. But that said, did you really need another receiver? And who's he taking time away from when he's out there? It's not going to be Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. So does that mean McMillan's not playing that much, or are you going to go 4 wide now? I don't know. Like that pick, he might be a really good player. It didn't seem like the right fit for them. They went corner in rounds 2 and 3, edge in 4 and 5. They did need to restock their defense. I kind of felt in playing them early in the year and then seeing how the league kind of materialized with the teams that were overly aggressive, which Todd Bowles is, that kind of got out of style, was getting burned. People were playing everybody back last year. So I want to see if they adjust at all as the year progresses. And as for the Commanders, we've gone through their draft a million times. We can talk about that at another time as well. Obviously, I like what they did. Not unlike with Dallas, it was very purposeful what they did. The players that were selected have roles almost outlined for them after they were selected, and I like that. This is where Egbuka doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to take someone like that, don't you have a role for him? Sure, he could be potentially a number one receiver down the road, but you already have 1 to 1A. What are we doing here? You have a team that's been in the playoffs for 3, 4, 5 years running. You have a very, very good quarterback who's coming off of a couple of tremendous years. You have a new offensive coordinator now. I don't know if that's the way I would have gone. All right, we'll go through the AFC next. Bram watches Joey ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, and we've just started the NBA and NHL playoffs, which has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NHL, and the UFC, Bet Online remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the Bet Online casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino. Bet Online. The game starts here. All right, welcome back. Let's go through the AFC teams and how they did and how they were graded. I probably won't go into as much detail as I did with the NFC teams, because when we get to the Super Bowl, hope, pray, believe, all the adjectives, all the belief systems. We only get one of these teams, so let's see what we got. Ravens, boy, that was one of my would have been at least lead ups. One of my favorite games of the year last year. I know it didn't work out very well on the field, but just having that kind of big game feel against Baltimore, we hadn't had in a very long time, really probably since the RG3 injury game against the Ravens years ago. I know we only play them every 4 years, but that was fun. That week 6, or I think is what it was, week 6 last year up in Baltimore. It was a great lead-up game. Felt like a first big game. And it was another one of those special moment games because I remember thinking afterwards, I liked how the team talked about the loss. Like they were not going to sit there and go, well, they're just better than us or they're just ahead of schedule than us. They just did not react that way at all. They went heavy defense early in the draft, 3 of their first 4 picks, defensive side of the ball. Malachi Starks is maybe the best safety coming out in the draft. He's going to get paired with Kyle Hamilton, who just got the 5th-year option picked up. It's a heck of a back end all of a sudden. Mike Green is a risky pick. There's off the field issues that go along with him. But most of the draft analysts believe he could have been the number 1 edge that was selected and very easily could have gone in the first round. Some people ranked him as a top 10 player on the board, but you'd have to look past some things that went on with him at 2 different schools. And so, they got a great athlete. Did they get a person who's going to be able to shake the past and not be a problem down the road? We'll just have to see. From a talent perspective, it's a steal where they got him in the middle to late portion of the 2nd round. They went Emory Jones, offensive line, LSU in their 3rd round. And then again, they went defense again. I think notable 2 6th round. They took a kicker, Tyler Loop out of Arizona. I think that ought to kind of tell you what the future may be for Justin Tucker, who they haven't made any decisions about him. But obviously there's a lot of allegations about him from years ago about his conduct with masseuses. So we'll have to see how that one plays out as well. They got graded an A-. I agree with this, and it's got big boom attached to it. If Green is going to end up being a really good citizen, really good player, and Starks, who looks like he's going to be a terrific player, then it could be a big-time hit for them. Buffalo went with Maxwell Hairston, the pick after Washington at 30. That's the guy that Keim thought that Washington was going to take. So that might have been a tough choice for the Commanders because Hairston was on the board. They ended up taking a corner, obviously, in round 2 and Trey Amos. They went corner, D-line, edge, D-tackle, corner, tight end, corner. So 6 of their first 7 picks all on the defense, 3 of them cornerbacks, 3 of them they took cornerbacks, an edge, defensive line, defensive tackle, so they are reloading on that side of the ball. Caden Prather, the receiver out of Maryland, was a 7th round pick for them. So, obviously they got a young receiving core. They're looking for some people to kind of emerge up there, so he might actually get some run, get an opportunity. It's right place to go, right quarterback, obviously as well. They went C+, NBC did on Buffalo. I think that might be a little bit low here. I also liked Hairston coming out of Kentucky. I thought he could have easily been a pick for Washington. I think the fact that they went as heavy defense as they did tells you, I think they went full need that side of the ball. They got to feel like they need to get better over there. Cincinnati got the retirement of Sam Hubbard. They've got the potential contractual stalemate with Trey Hendrickson. I have a hard time believing he's getting traded now. I have a hard time believing they're going to give him the money he wants. I have a hard time understanding how that one's going to play out. So they had to go edge. They did. Shamar Stewart. He's the player who looks the part, feels the part, looks like he'd be a stud, and he had 3 sacks a year ago. So, figure that part out. They went also defense. 3 of their first 4 players of the 6 that they took were defensive players. Demetrius Knight, linebacker out of South Carolina, Barrett Carter, linebacker out of Clemson. They also went with 2 offensive linemen. Joe Burrow needs help with that. Round 3 with a guard, round 5 with a tackle. They graded this a B. I think it's going to be largely dependent on whether Stewart is actually an effective player or if he looks the part and never turns into a great player. I think B might be a little bit high. Cleveland, I love what they did early in the draft. I love trading out for them. This is a very, very difficult year. It's probably you're just going to have to eat it type of year with Deshaun Watson's contract, 2 years left on it. There's no way of getting out of it. They're moving some money down the road. The quarterback situation, we'll get to in a second, is weird for sure. But trade out, get extra picks, get more players, and then trade down and take Mason Graham, who might be the best defensive tackle on the board. Win. They took Carson Schlesinger, who I know Keim was talking about a lot, was getting a tremendous amount of buzz, first pick of the 2nd round. Quinshon Judkins, so they bring in the Ohio State running back to try to fortify that. Obviously, Nick Chubb, his future very much in jeopardy off of the really bad injury that he had. They got Harold Fannin, who's tight end out of Bowling Green, highly rated 3rd round. Then they went a little weird by taking Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders. I think one of those is a wasted pick. Like, there's no chance that both of them have a long-term future with the team. I think it makes it even more awkward for Shador to take him in the 5th round after you've selected a quarterback. I'll hear out all the arguments about how Shador being a backup brings a lot of baggage to the table, and especially in a place where there is no solidified starting quarterback, whether it's Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, or him. I think there's just going to be a preponderance of attention on Sanders, even though he was picked after Gabriel. I didn't love that selection by them. If they were going to take him, they should have taken him earlier. And sent kind of a message. To just take him at that point, just for the fact to take him at that point, felt like gratuitous. And the fact that they had already taken a quarterback actually makes no sense. It feels like they wasted a draft pick. They used a 3rd round pick on Dylan Gabriel. They didn't use a 7th round pick. They used a 3rd round pick on him. And everyone's going to walk into camp thinking he has no shot to win the job. And the guy who was picked after him 2 rounds later would beat him out anyway. I just think that was a mistake. They got a B. I would have given them an A+ for what they did early in the draft, and I'd give them an F for what they did at the bottom of the draft. Denver got a very good corner in Jahdae Barron, who I really liked and thought if he got to 29, that might be someone that Washington would have a hard time turning down. Drafted a running back in the 2nd round out of UCF, a receiver out of Illinois, a couple edge rushers. They got a new punter, which is always dangerous. If you get a good one up in Denver, it can be a weapon with the elevation. B- is what they got, the grade from NBC. Barron across from Surtain. If Barron is going to be anything even reasonably close to what Surtain is, they'll have the best cornerback duo in the NFL within a year. I think they did pretty well there. And this is a team obviously on the rise as they get out of the cap hell from the Russ decision that they made a couple of years ago. All right, Houston. Houston did not have a first-round pick, or they traded out of it. They went into the second round. They had 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, and a fourth-round pick. Heavy offense for them. Wide receiver Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Offensive tackle out of Minnesota, round 2. Those are their 2 second-round picks. Out of the third-round picks, Jalen Noel, the wide receiver, Iowa State. That pick was rated a lot higher by the players by the draft analysts than where he was actually selected. Woody Marks, running back out of USC, was taken with a 4th-round pick. So very, very heavy offensive moves. I think a preponderance, maybe a little too much on that side of the ball. I do understand that they need to get receivers in there. They've had some bad luck with injuries, illnesses, things like that with the receiving corps. Stephon Diggs came in. He's gone. Let's see how it plays out with them, and if either one of either Higgins or Noel can actually be players that they can count on early in the season for them. Indianapolis, I think, did actually really well. I haven't loved what they've done in recent years, but in this case, I think they did really well. Tyler Warren, to me, is a surefire. He was one of the bona fides of this draft where, if he fell, I think you're just getting a really, really good player, and getting him at 14, necessary for them. Obviously, I don't know who the future quarterback for that team is, but he's a very, very, very good player. The edge from Ohio State that they got, Tuimoloau, very highly rated player. Again, edge was very deep in this draft. Took a flyer on Riley Leonard, the quarterback out of Notre Dame, got to the national championship last year, was at Duke before that. Very good player. Good size, good arm, smart player. Not sure the talent level is high enough to be great, but this is a good flyer and potentially a very good backup for them. They got B+ for their grade, and I'll tell you what, I actually love what they did. I don't love their roster, but I do love this draft. I think it's a very, very good draft for them. Jacksonville trades up to get Travis Hunter, so they get some star power down there. Let's see how they use him, obviously. They then didn't pick again until the 3rd round. Where they took a corner and a guard in the 4th round. We heard a lot about Bashul Tutin, the running back out of Virginia Tech here. There was reported at a number of meetings with the coaching staff here. And he's got a lot of explosive tendencies. So they bring in a lot of explosive playmaking ability in Tutin and Hunter. They brought in a guard, a center, so they're trying to help the offensive line. Their new coach obviously was a very successful offensive coordinator, Rams, and then with Tampa a year ago. So let's see if he can kind of flip around Trevor Lawrence. Listen, I will buy Jacksonville is going to be better than they've been. I'm waiting for Trevor Lawrence to turn a corner, and they're giving him some star power here. They're going to get some buzz because Hunter is there. They got an A- for the draft, and I would say I agree with that. Kansas City went offensive tackle in round 1, smart. They need to rebuild there. It is Josh Simmons, who's off of a major injury, might have gone higher had it not been for the injury. They might have the ability to kind of wait it out with him to get him out there. But if he turns out to be really good or best tackle on the board, well, then, the team that doesn't need all the help just got it. The rest of the names are not going to, really jump off the screen or jump off the page at you. Omar Norman Lawton, who's a defensive tackle out of Tennessee. Ashton Gillott, edge out of Louisville. Noel Williams, corner out of California. Like, you're not going to hear any names that are really going to catch your attention that much. They got a B for this draft grade. I would say it's a B-, and maybe even worse if Simmons doesn't end up getting, because of the injury. If he comes back and he plays really well and he's a good starter for them, then they've done what they needed to do. If he's not, I don't know what I would grade something like that. Raiders, of course, went Ashton Genty in the 1st round. I don't know how he's not going to be good. Question is their offense good enough? Is Geno good enough? Are they going to be a run-first offense with Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator? We'll have to see. They went with a wide receiver in round 2, so they're trying to bulk up there. 2 offensive linemen and a receiver are 3 of their next 4 picks, so bulking up a lot in and around Geno Smith and trying to help Pete Carroll find some offensive firepower to try to figure out how to get that side of the ball going. So we'll see. I think Genty, they gave him an A- on the grade. It's hard not to agree with it. It's what they needed on that side of the ball to give Chip Kelly some weapons, and Genty's going to be a star. Chargers go Marion Hampton, the running back in North Carolina. I loved him on tape for sure. They go Trey Harris, receiver, Mississippi, in round 2 before they turn to a couple of defensive players. Hampton, if he turns them into a strong run game, ought to help Jim Harbaugh. And obviously they want to be a run team, so it's hard not to kind of like that pick for Los Angeles. The rest of the players, we'll just have to see how that kind of works out. But I do like Hampton for them. They got a B+ from NBC in their grade. Miami, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, is their first-round pick out of Michigan. Good player. They took Jordan Phillips out of Maryland. Took a couple Maryland players, actually. Dante Trader and Jordan Phillips, a couple defensive players. They took a guard in round 2. They got a C+ for this draft. They're taking a flyer on Quinn Ewers. As a 7th-round pick, I don't take issue with it. I don't see it with him when I've seen him play as an NFL quarterback, but who knows? Maybe he could develop into a backup or a little bit better than that. And obviously right now they don't need a quarterback anyway. Let's see. Grant should help their defense. I haven't liked a lot of the decisions they've made around personnel just in general over the last couple of years. I think they've weakened themselves. I just don't like the buzz or juju of them. Buffalo's a behemoth. The Jets could be better with Justin Fields, different coaching, settled down situations. That could be. New England could be better with Mike Vrabel now as coach and Drake May in a full season as a starter and a lot of money spent to try to build up the roster. They could be a little bit better. So Miami could fall into a situation where they were front running to trying to make a wild card. So I don't love the draft that they put together. As for New England, I think this is a hit. The grade they got was a B. I'd go a little bit higher than that. They took Will Campbell, the tackle, 4 to protect Drake May, fortify the offensive line. I loved Travion Henderson. He got to the second round. They took him at 38, so that ought to bolster them in terms of playmaking ability. They took the kicker that I liked in round 6, Andres Borregales out of Miami. I do wonder if Washington was going to take him with a 7th-round pick or at least go after him as an undrafted free agent if he got through the draft. He obviously ended up not getting through there. I like this draft for them, especially at the high end of it with Campbell and Henderson. I think they are plug-in immediate starters and impact players for them. As for the Jets, Armand Membo, they tackle out of Missouri. They need help on the offensive line. They went Mason Taylor, a tight end. They needed help at that position too. Round 3 is where they got Azariah Thomas, and there were people saying he was going to be a first-round pick. So that is real value for them to get him to go opposite of Sauce Gardner. Then we'll see with the rest of it there. They got a B- for this, but I actually thought this was a pretty good draft for them. They addressed things that they needed, and I think they might have got a value pick in the 3rd round there as well. Pittsburgh went, this was a surprise. We thought at some point they would take a quarterback. It wasn't until they got around to round 6, Will Howard out of Ohio State, who, at this point would be competing with Mason Rudolph to become the quarterback of the now and the future if Aaron Rodgers doesn't end up going there, or I guess they could trade for Kirk Cousins, etc. They want Derek Harmon, D-tackle out of Oregon. Obviously, Najee Harris is gone. Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa, is his replacement in the 3rd round. They went Jack Sawyer, so they get really good, great collegiate player. Captain, did it all. I'm actually somewhat surprised. I guess his measurables and his times weren't good enough to go higher than this. I thought he would go higher than round 4. I like this for the Steelers. I think this is a very Steelers draft. They took a running back who's not going to be explosive, but very good running back in Caleb Johnson. Derek Harmon fits the mold. Jack Sawyer fits the mold. And maybe Will Howard's a steal. That might be a stretch, but maybe he is. We'll have to see. So I kind of like the draft that they had as well. And let's see. Tennessee. Cam Ward, number 1. I mean, what are you going to say? I would have traded out of it. That's just me. Not that they had the answer quarterback with Will Levis, but I would have traded out of it. But maybe he'll end up being great. And if he is, then they absolutely did the right thing. They went edge with Oladejo from UCLA, who looked pretty good to me on tape. I was watching a lot of edges, obviously getting ready for the draft. Kevin Winston Jr., safety out of Penn State, goes round 3 for them. The draft grade they got was B+. It all ends up is does Cam Ward end up being a franchise-changing quarterback? And if that's the case, then they had a great draft. And if he doesn't, then it's a terrible one with a new GM with this second-year head coach. All right, I'm going to get into the Caps next. Be right back. Bram Weston Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let me just spend a few minutes on the Capitals, and I lied. I said earlier I was going to have Callow on with me. I've decided to let him sleep in today. I did all the hard work because I'm down in South Carolina, so I'm not going to make him get up and do this with me. I'll talk with him at length tomorrow. particularly about, I think, like, let's see what the schedule's going to be. Carolina and Washington were the first two teams that advanced in the NHL. A bunch of the other series still have a little bit to go. I don't think they want them to rest for a long period of time, but it's possible it's going to be 5 days minimum, or 4 days minimum, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Maybe they start them on Sunday. Maybe they don't, depending on how the other teams do. So it's going to be a pretty decent break here for both of these teams. Carolina finished off New Jersey in 5 games. Washington obviously beat Montreal in Game 5 at home last night. As for Carolina, I think it would be a little full circle. Remember, Caps won the Stanley Cup. They played Carolina the following year. They blew a series lead, and everybody just was kind of like, oh, but we won the cup, and they kind of acted like it wasn't that big of a deal, even though it kind of fallen in line with how a lot of series had gone through the years, through the heartbreak years, but we were still kind of in the afterglow of the Stanley Cup. They haven't won a series since, and that was the first one where they blew that series against Carolina, and everybody was just kind of like, whatever. As for Carolina's series with the Devils, 10 goals in the first 2 games that they played, both wins, or check that. First 2 games of the series held the Devils to 2 goals combined, lost game 3-2, then whooped them 5-2, and then came home and scored 5 goals again, 10 goals in the last 2 games combined. So held them to 2 or under in 4 of the 5 games, 2 goals combined in the 2 games at home, 10 goals scored in the final 2 games of that series. Carolina can do it both ways. So this is going to be a heck of a series for the Capitals to try to get through. As for last night, like, seeing Tom Wilson not just be, because he'd become less of the missile, less of the nuisance, less of the bully, and I love him for all of these things, in the last year and a half or so since he came off that injury, and this year became somewhat of a prolific scorer for them, 60-something points and 30-plus goals, and he still had a lot of hits, but it wasn't the type that was either getting him in trouble or turning into headlines. And in this series, I mean, it flipped on that hit that he put on the player in Montreal. The third period comeback, Game 4, is what really flipped everything. That hit kind of changed everything. So Wilson is exerting himself. He's old Tom Wilson and new Tom Wilson. Scored that power play goal last night on the scramble play in front. Perfect shot. So he's scoring, and he's the old Tom Wilson. Ovi, 4 goals, 5 games. You can't ask for much more than that. A couple of power play goals, including one last night. Connor McMichael's been outrageous in this series. He could have a number of goals at this point. Nice to see Protas back last night. The pass to Chikrin that scored that goal on kind of the backdoor streak to the goal. Amazing, amazing play on goal 2 last night. Logan Thompson, holy cow. Like, it was pit of the stomach when he went out. He comes back, plays. He stole game 2 for them, and last night was outrageous again, completely locked in. Probably should have had a shutout. He was outrageous for them again last night. This team's got it. This is going to be a heck of a series coming up here, but that was an experienced team. Might be new to winning again in the playoffs, but that looked like the experienced team that leaned on a lot of different heroes last night. If this is when it's going to be that kind of team effort, there's no telling how far they can go. I can't wait for this series with the Hurricanes. It's going to be something else. All right, everybody, talk to you tomorrow. Bram Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.